Irish accent. I don't know what accent Andrew McCourt has, but it might be a little different than mine. But you'll just have to put up with that one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this is about half the group. Some of the other ones are on, I think they were going to join the Zoom meeting, or we're going to record this and send it to them. So we'll pass it on to the rest. Yeah, yeah. But thanks for taking some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for showing up. I mean, it's great that people are enthusiastic and wanting to do it. And I know there's it's almost a year away, but I feel like I hadn't been in Nepal for 2 years, and then I was there last month, and it was like it was yesterday. So time moves very, very quickly, and next September we'll be here before we know it. So yeah, happy to come on and chat, and hopefully it'll be one of many conversations. So
yes, and I shared with the group today kind of the process that you sent to me, that we'll get all the paperwork to you. They'll get the 35-page outline for everything else, sign it, get it back to you, then which opens up the one-on-one communication. But we would like to do a number of meetings like this with you if you think that's most helpful for our group.
Yeah, I think, look, the more conversations that are happening are always better. I mean, you can read a 35-page document, or I can, send you 100 pages of information, but, asking direct questions always gets you a better response. And we're happy to do it, because from our point of view, the more information we can get to you, the better your experience is going to be. And it really is monumental. There was a guy, I was in base camp 3 weeks ago, and there was I shared a video on Instagram of a client that was there a week ago, and it was just like an amazing experience for them, completely blown away by the whole thing, thinking about it for 20 years and then being there. There's lots of experiences in life to have, and we just want people to have good ones. So whatever we can do to make it a better experience in the preparation to get there, that always makes the trip much easier when you actually get there. So happy to do it, happy to answer questions, and it's never too much trouble. We're here 5 days a week when we're not on trips to do this, and my wife has been there 7 times. So if I'm not around, she's happy to answer questions, and there's always female questions that people don't ask me. So she's more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has as well. So both of us are here in support of the trip.
Well, it's awesome that your wife actually did a video for packing for the trip.
So we're happy to answer questions anytime. So if anyone has any specific questions directly, just feel free to email us at any time. No problem.
Okay, great. Hey, tell us how you decided, or what led you to become a guide. What was your second choice for an occupation?
My background is in business development, finance. I worked for big companies like Accenture, Deloitte. So business development, business planning, business was kind of my life in my 20s. And I graduated from one of the better universities in the UK and went into that life for a while, and then realized that it really wasn't that important. And there was other things I needed to do. And climbing Everest was kind of part of a big journey for me. I climbed, my goal was to climb El Cap in California by the time I was 25, and achieved that, and then achieved Everest by 29, and et cetera, and kind of dreamed of doing all these different things and then achieving them. And then I realized I was in a very unique position to do all the things I ever wanted to in life. And it was time to start giving back. And the trekking business supplements really, I don't even call it a business. It's really just a lifestyle. But it really is about, I work with a nonprofit called Fields of Life, and based in Northern Ireland, but have a US office, have a base in Uganda. And we built a school in Uganda with Fields of Life when we climbed Everest. And then that has become a bigger mission. And actually now we're starting a bunch of nonprofit, where we started a bunch of nonprofits, but we're doing another nonprofit that helps Tibetan refugees. We've done some stuff that helps people in Uganda, and it kind of has evolved into like every time I've gone somewhere, you see the amount of people that work for us. Like for me to climb Everest, I just had to show up. I mean, physically ready to do it. I mean, there was a bunch of other people behind me, like one of our head climbing Sherpas who I've climbed with now for a decade. I mean, he was supported me all the way through the whole journey, even though we were unguided. And then these guys are sacrificing everything, even their lives, for us to do things that are quite unique and special. So I think in my 20s, I mean, I could talk about this for like hours, but yeah, I think you kind of experience these people in these regions and these places that are so amazing and are far more capable than I am, but just don't have the opportunities. So the nonprofits and the work that we do in the background is kind of actually more important than any of the trekking stuff that we do. The trekking stuff just lets us kind of live in Colorado and hike mountains, but it also gives us the opportunity to help other people. And that has been the key for us in how we kind of approach everything. So like we've hired full-time staff in Nepal, we have hired full-time staff in Africa, we put all our guys through college, we support their medical needs and their families' needs. That is more important to us. Like that's why there's just two of us here. We could have a sales team of like 20 people here selling trips, but that's really not going to achieve anything other than us having more money, which really isn't that important. So really it's about helping other people and seeing the need in other parts of the world. And that's kind of what drives us to do what we do. And obviously we love the outdoors. We like doing what we do. And my wife, like I said, she's been like the whole thing was just about us going and doing adventures and then bringing people along with us to experience the people, the mountains and everything that comes with that. So it's been an interesting evolution of, you know, when I was in my 20s, it was just about my goals and what I wanted out of life. And then it's kind of changed into, well, let's see if we can help other people along their journeys and what they're doing. So that kind of where our mentality is when it comes to the job that we do as well. So yeah, a long way away from business and kind of, you know, looking at liquidations and companies that are not doing so well and trying to, you know, tell people are not doing a good job is not always the best place to be in life. But we all have to do different roles and play different roles. And I'm just lucky that I can do this one.
I feel the same way. That's awesome. By the way, this is my wife, Gloria, back here, Ian. So she's not going to be on the trip, but you'll meet her at some point. She's done Machu Picchu with us a couple of times. So maybe we'll go with you sometime here.
Yeah, one of my favorite trips. Super special. And I feel like I've met you because I've seen you in so many pictures from when you got married all the way through to.
Well, you do a better job of posting on Facebook than I do. You're there all the time with your trips, and I appreciate that because I get to travel with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to do it, and I'm glad to meet you over the computer, and hopefully we'll get to meet in the real world at some point soon.
We will. Well, and with you in Vail, Colorado, you know, if I need to go there to meet and talk, and I suppose I'd be okay with that. You have to go. We're doing a road trip and stay. Our daughter used to live in Colorado, but she just moved to Austria. So we're going to go visit her in Austria instead. So we'll do that. Hey, I sent you a bunch of questions, and so if you want to kind of walk through some of those, and then maybe after you finish each kind of the question on the list, we'll just stop and see if there's any other questions about that question from the group. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the first question I know is about sleeping. People have heard different things about sleeping arrangements. So really, in the lodges and in the tents and in the hotel that we use, it's based off 2 people sharing. So teaming up with somebody else is the way it is. So from the hotel, from the minute you get there, sharing the same room, sharing the same lodge, the room in the lodge, and sleeping in base camp, it will be sharing with the same person all the way through and all the way back. The lodges that are available are so varied. I mean, there's really terrible places that you might have read on the internet. We don't stay in any of them except for in Gorak Shep, the last town before base camp. There's no really good options. There's like 4 lodges and 2 of them are half decent, and we stay in one of those. It's not ideal, but there's no other way around it. I think if you look on the internet, we stay in, and I can list out the lodges where we stay so you can actually look at them on the internet. But one of them where we stay is a place called Hotel Namche. And Hotel Namche have a shower and a Western toilet in your room. They have heated mattress pads, and you can use, they have washing facilities there and laundry. So they clean everything. So like I don't use my sleeping bag in those lodges, but in other lodges I do. I use my sleeping bag above that elevation. So you don't need any, you even in base camp now, you don't even need a sleeping mattress, because we have these thicker foam pads that are in the tents. The only reason to take one is if you really want extra comfort in base camp. But really in the lodges, the mattresses in the lodges we use are I'm going to say basic but comfortable. And we have like a video, food and accommodation video that we have on YouTube that kind of gives you an idea of what it's like. But I'm going to say they're basic but comfortable. I think Hotel Namche, where you spend 4 nights, 3 nights on the way up and 1 night on the way down, is by far the most comfortable. As you go higher, they become less comfortable. I think some of the lodges higher up do not have attached toilets in your room. I can list all of those out in an email, but really the first 4 nights, there's toilets in your room or attached to the room. Some of the lodges that we stay in have less people in them, so there's less people using the bathrooms, but there's it kind of gets gradually worse as you go up, but the comfort stays. The comfort kind of stays the same in terms of the beds are very comfortable. You don't need additional mattresses or anything like that. The only thing we recommend is that people use their sleeping bag, a pillow under the sleeping bag, because of other people using them and items not being washed as regularly. But we are using the better lodges throughout the whole trip, and we've never had an issue with. The biggest issue for us is the kitchen, to make sure that the same people are, to hold on to the same cooks and same staff in a lodge is very hard. So they obviously pay more for that, and that makes those lodges more expensive. But that means the quality and consistency is the same, and we've never had any issues in the lodges that we've used, really ever. So sleeping bags absolutely needed. Higher up, the only place that I don't use a sleeping bag is Namche, because I know the lady who owns the lodge. We've known each other for a decade, and they clean everything. All the sheets, everything is cleaned continually. But above that, I always use sleeping bags. The mattresses are fine, and the lodges are good, except for Gorak Shep, which you kind of have to just deal with. We're not there that long. You kind of go in to Gorak Shep that afternoon. There's a hike up Kalapatar for that kind of classic view of Everest. You come down, sleep, get up, have breakfast, and then you're going into base camp, and you really don't have to deal with that place that much. So that is the only, I suppose, issue. I think you're asking about what's the last part of that question, temperatures in the huts. I mean, the good thing about going in kind of late September into early October, the temperatures are quite warm. So I was there this year. I went in. When did we fly into the mountains? The 30th of September. And I mean, I was in shorts and t-shirt. I actually could have been in shorts and t-shirt all the way up to base camp. Um, it was that warm. Um, Even at 20,000 feet on one of the peaks we were on was super warm. I was at 20,000 feet just sweating, trying to get down off the mountain because it was so hot. So, at nighttime, I think when we went up Kalapatar, and you guys would be going up kind of early evening time. I mean, it's above freezing at that point, at that time of year. So you would expect at nighttime the temperatures drop into the 20s, higher up, probably in places like Namche Bazaar at 11,500 feet or Tengboche, the temperatures are going to be in the low 30s. So not ridiculously cold. Like most of the time I have the windows open just to let some fresh air in. And I was doing that all the way up to 16,000 feet at that time of year. So the only time that it really gets cold is when the wind is blowing, and you never know what that's going to do to the, whether it's going to be like that or not. But the Himalayas is very, very stable weather conditions. So you don't expect, crazy cold temperatures at that time of year. So yeah, it'll range between 60s hiking, which is very hot. Like for where I come from, I mean, 60s is like a summer's day where I grew up. So it's quite warm during the day, let's say 50s, 60s, lower down on the trail to maybe 30s, 40s at night, to 40s, 50s during the day, going into base camp and higher above 14,000 feet. And then maybe around 20s at night, which really isn't that bad. Maybe, I mean, in California, that's quite cold, but for where I grew up, that's actually really warm. Like I was on Kalapatar in September, early October. I didn't even wear liner gloves. But there was other people on the trip that were wearing bigger gloves. They were feeling the cold. So you never know what you're going to get. And I think that's why when you watch the packing video or we send you the kit list, it'll have a range of gear on there. And it's really just about, you never know what we're going to get. So it's best to be prepared for all sorts of weather. The day we came out of the mountains, we summited the second peak that we were doing early because there was a big storm coming in, and it dumped half a foot of snow, and it rained for 24 hours straight, lower down on the trail. So you never know what you're going to get. Although it says at late September, October is traditionally the best time to go there into November. You never know what you're going to get. So you kind of have to have all the gear just in case it is cold, it's warmer. And if it's warmer, great. But if it's colder and you have the gear, then at least you have it and you're prepared.
I think that what everybody wants is the list so they can make their Christmas gift list and tell all their friends. What I really want is an Arc'teryx, raincoat.
And look, you know what, we can send it. I can send it to you tomorrow, and then you can share it. Just so it, because if people want to start looking at all that stuff, to cut down we can just send you the dossier with the itemized kit list. You can see each piece of kit, start ticking it off, and then decide whether you want new Arc'teryx gear or some other brand that. But really, really, when it comes to gear, I'm going to say sleeping bag, trekking boots, and layers. Having the right layers is really, really important. So anyone that has any concerns, or they're looking at certain down jackets or certain things and they're like, I don't know if I need this or that, just email us. We'll have a look at it. We'll see what we think, if it's a different brand that we don't know. So we're happy to answer and kind of, take on all those questions, because there are so many, you're going at a very specific time of year when it is warmer on the trip. So on the trail. So we can help with all that. And I'll send that. I'll get my wife to send that through first thing in the morning.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, the second part of that was how many nights sleeping in tents, which is just one night in tents. So that's really just in base camp. When you go into base camp, all the tents are set up. There's mattresses in there. They're like 3-inch thick mattresses. We do give nice hot water bottles to put in your sleeping bag, which helps when you're sleeping on a glacier. But it's only one night in tents. The rest of the time is sleeping in the lodges. Then the next part of that was
Are the mattresses on plywood or no?
no. So they're lit. They'll be right on the ground. You'll be 3 inches off the ground. So some people do bring air mattresses with them just for extra insulation on the glacier. And that's something that you can consider. A lot of people do that. So they bring like their thermarest on top of that, just so they're comfortable. And we're happy to talk about that a little bit too, because you have to sleep. So if you're not sleeping, the whole trip is a disaster. So the more comfortable you are, the better. And we do have some air mattresses, and if you're worried about sleeping and being as comfortable as possible, it's worth having an extra mattress. Absolutely.
Great question.
Like I've been there or something.
Temperatures. So yeah, like you'll expect the temperature. I'm just following on that part B of that question, but we will expect the temperatures to be in the 20s at base camp, even at that time of year. Although it could be late 20s into 30, but even at that, when you're not doing anything, that's like sitting in the freezer. So even though it won't be, let's say, extremely cold in terms of, massive risk in terms of cold temperatures, it's cold enough to annoy you when you want to get out of the tent to go to the bathroom. Those are temperatures that are quite annoying, and you can enjoy the stars as you do it, but definitely it's going to be cool. Let's not say it's going to be extremely cold at that time of year, which is a good thing. And going at that time of year is really makes a difference in terms of temperatures. Part C of that question: in the huts, is there a place to wash underwear, socks, etc.? So in Namche Bazaar, where you spend 3 nights on the way up, they have a laundry service, and the best time to do it is on the second day there, because you get it back on the morning of the third day before you leave. The next place where you spend 2 nights in Dingboche, they do have a laundry service. So that's kind of day 6 into day 7. And then if you really wanted to wash extra clothing and socks in sinks, that's not a problem. A lot of the lodges have warm rooms, and they have heaters inside the main area that in the lodges, and you can bring down, you probably don't want to bring down your underwear, but you can bring down your socks, other items, and dry them out right in front of that fire quite quickly. So those are 3 options, but definitely there's 2 of the places where you spend multiple nights, they have laundry services. So that does help, instead of just piling in, 10 pairs of 14 pairs of underwear and tons of, socks and clothes and equipment. You can do laundry when you're in there. So you get kind of 2 opportunities to do that.
That's helpful, because a lot of us like to travel and just wash it ourselves in a sink and hang it up if the room is dry enough that it'll dry, so we don't have to carry as many.
Yeah, I mean, in the challenge always in the rooms is there's no heat in the rooms, so you kind of do have to bring some of the clothes into the main area, which that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. But it's in the rooms that it's kind of hard that they will dry. Let's just put it that way. And then a lot of people hang socks and items off the back of their rucksacks during the day. That's kind of banking on sun for that, but those are, there's laundry service that'll dry everything, and then there's the option of the heaters in those rooms in the lodges to dry items out. Absolutely.
Great.
Phones, batteries. So all the way up to Namche Bazaar, there's charging stations in the room, and it's free. So I usually have a battery pack with me, and that usually gets me about 8 charges on an iPhone, and I'll get to charge that in the lodge for free all the way up to Namche Bazaar. Higher up on the trail, they charge for charging. Depending on the lodge, it gets more expensive the higher you go up. But I usually then have my battery pack full in Namche, where you spend 3 nights. So by the time I'm fully charged at that point, I don't ever have to charge again. And I do everything on my iPhone. Like all the pictures that you see on social media and are all done on this. I'm not taking anything else with me. I don't need to. I mean, this takes the iPhone or phones take amazing video, pictures, and then you can airdrop and share them and all that good stuff. If anyone's really into taking like amazing pictures, you know, bringing DSLRs, they just are bulky, heavy, annoying. But maybe if one person does it, then nobody else has to do it. So that's a consideration. Some people bring like solar packs that they hang off their backpack, charge them up, and charging their battery packs and then charging their phones through that. That's an option. But I think the battery pack, which is in the dossier, which I'll send you tomorrow, that's usually good enough for charging higher up. If you did need to charge the battery pack again, they usually charge about $10 to $15 to fully charge that battery pack. And that's, you know, just in case. That you can do that anywhere in any of the lodges. They just charge different rates for charging, because most of it's done off generators. Higher up on the trail, they don't have electricity. So you can charge, let's just put it this way, if you've got money, you can charge all the way up to Gork Shep and all the way back. There's no issue. There's no issue with charging.
Is it a regular outlet? Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll literally take your iPhone or your phone charger and use it. Like they have all the systems in place. You just hand it over, they charge it no matter what it is.
Okay.
So you don't need a converter. You don't need anything like that. You just have to hand over your phone charger and they'll do it like super easy.
Nice. That's awesome.
Okay, hiking shoes. So I'm going to tell you that we have to recommend that people have proper hiking boots with full ankle support. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people being helicoptered out of the region with ankle issues. Not necessarily in our trips, but there's a lot of areas where you can have ankle related issues, especially higher up on the trail when you're starting crossing rocks and glacial moraine on the way into base camp. I could tell you so many times of people, you know, having sprained ankles and they're all wearing trail shoes. Even stories of climbers going in to climb Everest and spraining their ankles on the way in after spending ungodly scenes of money trying to climb Everest. So we only really recommend trekking boots for the trip. We have a list in the dossier, we've an itemized list of what we recommend. And we have a blog post of, I think, 5 of the top boots that we've used that we recommend. I think wearing Hokas or any kind of trail shoe wouldn't be advised if you did run into snow or anything. They wouldn't be ideal. And I when I train here, I train in trail shoes. Sometimes I'm wearing hiking boots, but on the trail, I'm always wearing hiking boots just in case. The stress on the ankles and on the body after 13 days, it just takes one sprain, one issue, and you're dealing with a whole different situation. So we highly recommend hiking boots, and we recommend very specific ones, but not that they have to be those specific ones, but definitely ankle support is super important. And I get that it's warmer and I'm just thinking of safety for you got 2 ankles, you got to get up and down the trail. And yeah, hiking boots. And I can send you the links to the boots that we recommend too.
Sounds good.
So backpacks are super. I mean, I'm a big fan of Deuter. Deuter have like great shoulder support, back support. A lot of people are going with Osprey, which are lighter backpacks, but they don't have the support. Like every time I put on an Osprey backpack, I feel like my lower back gets hammered, especially if I'm carrying any sort of weight for days on end. And I think lightweight backpacks are great for like Inca Trail stuff, 3 or 4 days or 5 days. But when you're doing something like this, where you're doing 14 days and that backpack is part of your body for a lot of the day as you're hiking, super important to pick the right one. I think you don't need to carry, we recommend like a 35-liter backpack, but 30, even 28 is fine. It's really about the comfort level, and getting a backpack fitted to your back. I know REI do a great job, and any good local backpack or local outdoor store should do a really good job at fitting a backpack to you specifically. Because I do see a lot of people wearing backpacks and they're too low on their back, they're not sitting well on their hips, they're not adjusted to them specifically. And we can list it in our dossier, but really important to go into a store and really get a good feel for a backpack. Like I said, I like Deuter. It's a little heavier, but it gives really good back support. It has really good waist straps, really functional. And I would never, in my experience now, I would never compromise on a backpack. I would never compromise on hiking boots. I'd never compromise on a backpack. It's gonna, depending on how it sits in your back, you can get sore necks or shoulders or everything if it just doesn't sit properly. So I can't recommend one that I can say is going to fit you, but it is important to go into a store and try on a range of backpacks if you're concerned.
You didn't say Brandon.
Deuter, I never heard of
It's
that.
it's DEU.
Yeah, and I think we have a list. Like I can send you what I would bring, but again, all of these things are like these fine people that have these different backpacks that they've used for years that they love, and if it works, perfect. Don't change it. But if you're buying a new one, be very concerned about putting on a backpack that you're going to have to put on your carry for 13 days, straight. And some of the days are 8 hours back to back. And I can tell you that if you've got the wrong backpack, it can potentially ruin your trip. Like having the wrong footwear on your feet. It can ruin your trip. So, so that's backpacks, but that's such a hard question to answer. So I'm going to just throw that out there, and then if anyone has any more specifics at a later date, we can go.
What we'll do, Ian, is we'll actually do a meeting with all of our people and have them bring all of their gear, and we'll do that probably early, late winter. So months beforehand, we'll get together and look at everybody's gear and check it all and see how it fits with everybody, because we've got some good people to help us make sure that packs are fit properly. So,
yeah, I mean that's gold. If you're doing that, that's amazing. Doing all that beforehand just makes the trip, because everything you do beforehand just makes the trip run so much easier.
Right.
That really is a big deal. You definitely don't need mountaineering boots in any way, shape, or form. But hiking boots do need to be Gore-Tex. So you could be dealing with rain, you could be dealing with mucky trails, we could be dealing with snow. You never know what you're going to get, but definitely you don't need full mountaineering boots that are crampon compatible, especially at that time of year. Some people choose to wear them just because they like them, and they're used to wearing mountaineering boots, but really there's no need for them whatsoever. And I think that's part of that second question, although I feel like I've been talking for a while. The duffel bag.
I sent him a lot of questions, you guys.
The duffel bag. No, this is good. The duffel bag doesn't need to be waterproof, because it's really hard to find those. Like Yeti, I think, do the only like the ones that I've seen are fully waterproof, but they're super expensive. I use a North Face duffel bag. It's like 100 liter, 120 liter if I'm going climbing. Always in your backpack and in your duffel bag, it's good to just have black bin liners and even have, I use stuff sacks for everything, so waterproof stuff sacks. So I have my lodge clothes in one bag. I have my higher merino layers with like gloves and all sorts of stuff that I need higher up on the trail in a separate bag. So I have everything kind of separated: socks, underwear, toiletries. I know exactly in my duffel bag then what I'm taking out and what I need. Because I don't want to be having to take out all my stuff, pack it back up again, day in, day out. It gets super annoying. So definitely having waterproof or at least plastic bags or a big bag inside the duffel bag to keep it dry, super important, along with stuff sacks to keep everything kind of separated and keep everything dry. And I do that on my backpack too. But the duffel bags, it's hard to get a waterproof bag that's reasonably priced. But North Face do good duffel bags, and we actually cover everything up as well. So it kind of gives it, because we use animals rather than porters, as much as we possibly can. We're using animals, so we put everything in a separate bag, load it onto the animals, and they'll carry it from lodge to lodge. But definitely worth thinking about. If your sleeping bag gets wet, or anything in your bag gets wet, it's not so easy to dry out. So definitely that is a tricky one, buying waterproof duffel bags. But don't think I've ever seen anyone carry them. Just using plastic bags or trash bags will work perfectly.
We'll not do that. We know how to help you with that.
Okay, so what temperatures to expect while you're hiking, sleeping? So I think we kind of covered that in the beginning, but yeah, that can be, you never know what you're going to get. Anywhere from 20 to 60. So you got to be prepared for all of it. Do most Americans find the meals in the hut sufficient? Lunch break. Okay, so that's a good question. Yes. Normally they're big meals. I think a normal situation is, a lot of people are ordering oatmeal and then French toast or chapati and scrambled egg for breakfast. You can have club sandwiches for lunch. You can have big meals like in Namche. We were having chicken with mashed potato and veg, which took me back to my Irish lineage. But there's a lot of food. I mean, when they're serving meals, like a lot of people don't even finish the food. So especially as you go higher, you get food put in front of you at 14,000 feet, and you might not finish half of it. And the challenge is that it's really important to eat, but it's also hard to eat because your stomach is being suppressed at altitude. Your brain is getting bigger, and not in a good way. You're not getting smarter. You're actually frying more brain cells, but your stomach is being suppressed. So you don't feel as hungry, although you're burning, you're dehydrating 4 times faster. Your respiration is up by 20 beats, even from sea level. So your body's working harder at higher altitude, burning more calories, but you're not taking it in as much. Like I lost, and granted, I did 2 20,000-foot peaks as well as base camp, but I still lost, I think, about 18 pounds on the trip. But I came back and I put it all on in about 5 days.
That's the fun part.
And I was still eating quite a lot. So I think the only thing about having snacks, having additional food, is that if you are struggling, we had a 78-year-old on our last trip just with us, and he was a minister from Canada, quite an amazing character, but he really struggled to eat at above 14,000 feet, but he was able to eat like nuts and trail mix and Snickers bars, and he could get the calories in. It wasn't good nutrition, but he was able to get the calories in to be able to get him through the trip. And that is why you would bring extra snacks. The challenge, is weight. Getting into the mountains is always a problem. In places like Namche Bazaar, you can buy chocolate, nuts, sweets, all sorts of stuff. You don't have, the only thing you really need to bring is like maybe additional protein bars, but you don't need to be bringing like 20 bars. I mean, it really depends on the person. Like for me, I could go without eating all day, but if I don't have water, it's a problem. So if your body, you know better than I will about, some people have to eat every few hours, so they need snacks on the trail. If you're that person, then you need to bring more snacks than anyone, somebody else. Someone like me, I don't need it. I don't need any of the food. Um, my body will just be fine without eating. But some people are like, oh my God, I gotta eat now. If you're one of those people, definitely having some additional snacks is super important. Just you got to think about the weight. You can't just be bringing in bags of trail mix and snacks, but thinking about all that stuff and then buying stuff on the trail. There's always Snickers bars, Bounty bars, all those type of things, or all the way up the trail. Every single lodge has those bars available to buy. So that's just something to consider. Not very good nutrition, but definitely calories in that you're going to use to get you through the journey. And nutrition and taking vitamins and all that stuff, that we have some stuff in our dossier, but all that stuff is super important for a good immune system, and getting you through the trail. So thinking about supplements rather than just candy bars and chocolate bars is super important as you think about bringing things with you into the mountains. And we can go through that in more detail on another call. But I think definitely there's enough food in the meals, but that is all dependent on the people. Some people are like, they want more food, they want more snacks. I'm like quite happy with what's given to me, and there's always leftovers from what I see of the food being given to people. If I was going to spend extra money on one or two items, what's the biggest? So definitely,
Ask them the question: if you were going to splurge and buy one or two items for Christmas for yourself, or your husband or your wife's going to do that, what would you want? So this might get back to the pack, the shoes, or the sleeping bag.
Yeah, I mean, I think I already mentioned already. I think
Yeah.
you spend quite a lot of time in the room. Like even if you have dinner at 6 o'clock, by the time it hits 7 o'clock, 7:30, and you played cards, you've had a conversation. By 8 o'clock, everybody's in bed, and you don't get up till 6 o'clock the next morning, whether you sleep or not. You're in the room quite a lot. So sleeping to me is really, really important. And as I get older, and I'm not that old, but in my 20s, what was acceptable in my 40s is not. I spend a lot of time in the room, so I'm trying to sleep, rest. So having a good, comfortable sleeping bag, not being cold, is really important. I think having really comfortable clothes to change into. So like when I arrive in the lodge, the first thing I do is I take off all my clothes are off, my trekking boots are off, and I have comfortable attire to put on, and I have that same gear, same socks, same underwear, same top. So I'm comfortable. And even though there's hiking and there's a lot of hiking, there's also a lot of downtime. So being comfortable in the lodge, with a nice fleece jacket, with nice merino layers, with nice fleece pants, with nice comfortable shoes on. To me, that's a big part of being comfortable on the trail. Having a good sleeping bag, super important. Obviously, like what I said about a backpack, it has to be comfortable. If that thing is nagging on your back and it's not comfortable, you're just not going to enjoy the trekking experience. So yeah, I mean, to me, the number one would be comfortable in the lodge. I want to be able to sleep well, and I want to be comfortable, because the minute we get in at 3 o'clock, I have a long time to spend there. And I can't control the people around me and what they do and say. So what I can wear and sleep in is super important. So yeah, and then when I'm on the trail, obviously my footwear, your feet take an awful beating, and they'll take an even worse beating if they're not in comfortable trekking boots. So yeah, those footwear, backpack, sleeping, those are my key things. to think about when you're going through all of this. What's the next question? Water purification, filters, SteriPens, all that stuff. So I have used the same water purification tablets that I buy in Kathmandu. I've used the same ones for a decade, and I can share a picture of them. They're cheap. They're like $5 in Kathmandu, and they're great. I put them in my water. The biggest thing to think about with water purification is the water up there is pretty clean. I mean, they filter it, like double filter it in the lodges that we use. And when you get handed the water, it looks like this. And when I put in those purification tablets, it takes 30 minutes and then I'm able to drink it. I've never seen, I shouldn't say never seen on our trip. On our trips, I've never seen it, but I have seen people with water related challenges and picking up all sorts of things, but I've never seen it in the lodges that we use, and I've seen hundreds, thousands of people go through them. The bigger issue is when you're using a Camelback system that's not clean. That's when you usually get people that get stomach problems from not cleaning the nozzle and exposing it to dirt and filth, and then you put it in your mouth and you're going to get sick. Or everything you touch, from the menu that's handed to you to order food, to the door on the toilet or the door into the lodge, all of those things are not clean. So you touch those things and then you pick up a sandwich and put it in your mouth, you're going to get sick. So water is pretty good up there, really, really clean from my experience. And we've never seen any main issue with it. SteriPens, most people are using SteriPens. Water purification, the only thing you have to think about is a lot of people buy these 4-hour tablets. If you buy those 4-hour tablets, that's great, but you have to do a lot of your water treatment in the evening time, so it's ready for the next morning. The other challenge is too, you don't want to be carrying tons of water with you. You want to carry 2 liters at any time. So my hydration's kind of setup is we're awake you're waking up at 6, breakfast is at 7, you leave at 8. In those 2 hours, I like to drink a liter of water. Then I like to carry 2 liters with me to lunchtime, and then I like to top up on that after lunch with a liter, maybe 2 liters, depending on the day, depending on the temperature. But at lunchtime, you need to have those 30-minute tablets, or you need to have a 30-minute solution that's going to work in the water, so you can drink that water after lunch. They've kind of outlawed plastic in the region, so buying bottles of water, plus it kind of is a big issue in the region with just everything being burned. So we try and not buy plastic water bottles unless you absolutely have to. I think those are a couple you can buy those tablets in the States, you can buy those tablets in Kathmandu, and you can bring SteriPens for the kind of lunchtime hour to treat the water and then fill up for the afternoon hiking. So I hope that kind of answers
Thank you.
that question around hydration. But the water is quite clean, so it doesn't need to be, those straw systems where you're filtering out dirt and all that sort of stuff. That's not needed on the trail. And usually what happens too is that you bring the Nalgene bottles in, or the Camelback, and you hand it to our staff. They fill it up, give it back to you, you treat it. And anything that's handed to you that's cold should be treated, no matter what. Even if someone says, "Oh, that's been boiled," anything that's cold, treat it, and that's the way we deal with water in the region. Where are we now? Water, SteriPens. So the next question is about the use of Diamox, altitude, sickness prevention, medication, etc. So we've been doing research for the University of Utah for the last 6 years. And one of our guides / doctors is a wilderness medicine specialist in the States. And he writes for the Wilderness Medicine Bureau, and he's been up Everest. He is an accomplished mountaineer and has spent a lot of time in the mountains. And he has people working under him that are doing research projects all the time. And him, through all their research and through all our research, Diamox is something that we, from what we've seen and from the research, 100% works. The only reason you shouldn't take it is if your doctor doesn't recommend it or you're allergic to sulfas. But other than that, Diamox pushes oxygen around the body. We always see people with higher oxygen saturation levels on Diamox. It can be taken from the beginning of the trip. It can also be taken if needed on the trip. So if you don't want to take the medication, you don't have to. But if you do need it, it is good to have it. And it is one of the biggest issues that we've found is people are getting these 500 milligram capsules, which is terrible because that's for somebody the size of a horse. So the levels of medication that have been researched and tested, and they're doing more research on lower doses, but 125 milligrams in the morning and 125 milligrams in the afternoon. Diamox takes about 7 hours to kind of kick in and work. If somebody was feeling the effects of altitude, when they take Diamox, it usually brings them back. The challenge with that, and always is a concern to people, is it masking the effects of more serious condition? And that is always the risk. When you take Diamox, are you masking the effects? I would say with the additional acclimatization we have lower down, with the 3 nights at 11,500 feet, and then the additional 2 nights at above 14,000. If you're going to see altitude problems, you're going to see it no matter what. So whether you're on Diamox or not, you're going to see altitude challenges, whether it's headache, vomiting, nausea, fatigue, shortness of breath. Any 3 symptoms anyway, you should be going down, not up. So Diamox is only going to mask on those levels of 125 milligrams in the morning and afternoon. It's not really going to mask the underlying effects of any serious altitude related problems. You're going to see them. And our staff are checking oxygen saturation morning and evening. So they'll see a trend. If they see you're on Diamox or you're not on Diamox, but your oxygen saturation is dropping, you've got headaches, you've got problems, we're going to know all about it before you even. So it's not like the Diamox is really going to affect, it's going to change drastically how things are happening. You will still see subtle behavior that'll dictate altitude related problems. So I'm a big fan of Diamox. I just think you have to check with your doctor to make sure that you're not allergic to any of the ingredients in it. If you decide not to take it, there's a bunch of alternatives to Diamox, and we have some content on the website which I can share with anyone about it, whether it's taking beetroot or taking zinc, garlic. All these supplements that are natural are going to help with hemoglobin, with help with oxygen saturation, etc. I think ibuprofen is the biggest tried and tested drug that you should have with you because it reduces the inflammation. And the biggest problem with altitude is trying to sleep. You can be the fittest person on the planet and have trained for months and months in preparation, but if you're not sleeping, you got a bit of a problem. It's going to be a much harder experience on the trip. So ibuprofen is a tried and tested drug at altitude. Inflammation in the brain is what's causing headaches, causing problems, causing your body not to get to rest. So ibuprofen, like 400 milligrams, even before I go to sleep, sometimes at 16, 17,000 feet, if I take 400 milligrams of ibuprofen, I'm going to fall asleep. If people have sleeping issues, Advil PM is something that can be used. Heavy sleep aids are not advised unless your doctor recommends it, like Ambien, which is not over the counter. But if you do have sleep-related challenges, you definitely want to think about ibuprofen, Ambien, Advil PM, because sleeping is so important. But Diamox, that's a personal choice. We're going to recommend it at those doses at that kind of 125 morning and afternoon. If you don't take it, if you have it with you, we always have a stash of it. You can buy it in Kathmandu before the trip as well. So those are personal decisions. And happy to chat more about that with anyone if needed.
Quick question on that, because on that question, Ian. So
Yeah.
years ago when I started Diamox, because that is kind of my silver bullet besides conditioning, because I tend to get sick if I don't take it. That's just my pattern in my life. Years ago, my doctor prescribed 250 in the morning and the evening, and then lately it tried to get me down to the 125. So it sounds like you're recommending I should try that the 250 is probably not necessary twice a day, because that's what I used to
Yeah,
do.
I think they've tested, Diamox at 250 morning and afternoon. They've tested at 125. They're doing tests now at like 80 milligrams. I think, yeah, like over the time that we've been doing it, never seen massive side effects. So if you take higher dosages, you're going to have, it depends on the size of the person too. So like somebody that's like, 140 pounds versus someone that's 210 or 220, the doses will vary. Like there's no, like if somebody was larger, I would say maybe taking 250 in the morning and 125 in the afternoon. And you can play around with, you don't really want to be playing around with the doses, but we can. So like if somebody, like one of our guides was like nervous about somebody and they were like, okay, we could increase the Diamox, they would call us, they would text me and say, here, what do you think? And we can get on a call and talk about it. But really, I think the 125 is the way to go. The only time we would ever mess with that is you would potentially go up to a 250 in the morning if there was a need at 17,000 feet, depending on what we were seeing in the oxygen levels. But at the same time as that, you don't want to be just upping the dosage to mask the effects of altitude. So there's a balance between doing that. I think when you stick with the 125 and 125, we're not masking any major effects of altitude, but we're also putting you at a place where you're pushing oxygen around the body where it needs to be, without masking any major effects. So to me, that's what we're seeing over the last decade. And all the research that has been done on it suggests that is the kind of optimal level to be at.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So do guides carry any prescription level medication? So yes, we have a full medical kit with us. But we don't have, let's say, if everybody got a chest infection, or if everyone had a bacterial infection, and they needed to take Cipro, for example, we don't carry it for everybody, but we carry like antibiotics, we carry medication for a range of different things. So we always, in our dossier, which I'll send to you tomorrow, we do recommend that everyone have those antibiotics with them. So if you had a chest infection, which is usually one of the bigger issues, is people are sniveling, sucking in all that stuff, which is better to get out. And if you can snot rocket, or you can use tissues or whatever it is, instead of sucking that filth into your chest, that is probably one of the bigger things we see. Like having antivirals for like flu, or like NyQuil and Dayquil, like things like Sudafed for congestion. Like we carry some of those things, but it's better to have like some of those medications with you, especially the antibiotics for a chest infection or for a bacterial infection if you did ingest something. So we have that in the dossier, but we definitely recommend having some of those additional medications just in case. Not that I've seen everyone on a trip come down with anything, but it's usually one person or two people. But always better.
I have a related question to this.
Yeah.
I'm just asking for someone else. How soft is the toilet paper on the trail?
Well, that is a really, 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 really good question, because in the lodges they don't have toilet paper in the toilets. So you have to carry your own toilet paper. I always carry it from home because that stuff, you do not want to use it. It is.
Okay, I guess that was my question.
I'm not going to say it's sandpaper. It's not sandpaper, but it's not far off it. So,
No.
I would highly recommend bringing toilet paper from home with you. And I always have a big roll in my duffel bag, and I always have another roll in my day pack the whole time. So yes, bring your own toilet paper, and do not buy the toilet paper in the lodges.
That's a good
All
question.
right.
It's a very, very, very good question. So yes, the last two questions are about bringing items to donate to an orphanage, and then bringing stuff to donate to local guides and porters. So I don't know, are you guys planning on doing some sort of charity work when you're?
Yes, we have it in our schedule, and we're going to be working with you with your local spot.
Yeah, so it really depends on how much you can take with you. Like I always bring a big spare duffel bag with all sorts of items and things that I bring every time. I definitely think on the trail, and I'll go kind of backwards, but on the trail, usually pens, papers, for kids on the trail, like little gifts that they can use practically rather than giving them sweets and candy, because they don't have access to as much to dental care on the trail as they would in Kathmandu. Kids love, pencils and drawing books and all that sort of stuff, but you got to think about weight going into the mountains too. I think about anything you bring to Nepal will be used in any way, shape, or form. We have just finished building our second school in a village called Goli, where a lot of our staff come from, and they're looking for anything. So, I mean, anything will be used, and you'll see on the trail, everything is used. So, like yak poop is picked up, dried, and used to heat buildings and homes, so that nothing gets wasted there. So, I think when it comes to the charity elements and the kind of orphanage / projects that are being done, I think we will ask, whatever we decide, or whatever the decision is to go to wherever we go, it'll be better to ask them exactly what the direct need is that they need, rather than us just bringing random stuff. So I think what we'll do is we'll find out what the need is at the time, and then we'll kind of plan accordingly for that. I think when it comes to guides and staff and porters, we kind of kit out all of our staff. There's a porters association that do take gear on, and what they do is they rent out the gear to anyone that needs it, and then those people can bring that gear back at no cost to the porters. The challenge with giving directly to porters, because you see we don't use porters as much, we like to use animals more, but you'll see porters on the trail with like sandals and like terrible shoes and footwear. And I can guarantee you, if you give them a pair of trekking boots, they're not going to wear them. They're going to sell them for money, and they'll use the money for whatever they need, which isn't a bad thing. But people are always going, why don't the porters have better gear? And it's because they just need the money for whatever their need is in their family. So, like on Kilimanjaro, we have all this stock of clothes that staff can get access to, and then bring it back, and they don't get charged for it, and we wash it and cover all that cost. There is a system in Nepal that an organization that do that, so porters and people can get access to gear. So if anyone did have any items of gear or kit, bringing it to that organization, like you can be brought to our office, and our office staff can bring it to that organization, and make sure it gets into that system. And that's really the only way that system works, where people can get access to gear when they need it, rather than handing it directly to people. Never works. It'll just end up somewhere, and the whole system doesn't work properly. So those are a few things to think about. I think with the porter system, and anyone that has spare gear or they're bringing gear, there's a whole setup for that we can arrange to get that gear to the right organization, so they can.
We'll spend another session with you after we've got some more information from you about that, and then we'll figure out how much we can bring and what would be the most helpful for you, for us to help you serve them.
Yeah, and we can touch base with them and see what the need is at that particular time,
Wonderful.
depending on what's going on. Likewise with the whatever organization, whatever we decide to do in Kathmandu in terms of supporting a project, best to get in touch with them and ask them exactly what they need at that time, and I think that'll work better for them, and then we're kind of supporting that direct need. Yeah, so we can cover all that again.
Perfect.
And then I know that's the end of the questions, but I mean, there's probably 100 million questions. So
Yes,
Well, I've got one. The
Yeah.
itinerary shows us getting into Lukla, and then the next day shows us in Namche.
and Namche, yeah,
Namche.
Namche.
Is that a direct? Are we going that entire from Lukla to Namche?
So I can share Namche Bazaar is the name of the town, but no. So when the goal when you get into Lukla is to arrive in as early as possible, and we always book the first flights in from Kathmandu to Lukla. And a normal situation is if that flight takes off at sometimes 6:30, like this time when I was there, it took off at 6:30, and we were in Lukla by 7:15. Excuse me, in the morning. Sometimes we don't get in till 11 o'clock. Sometimes we don't get in till later. Sometimes we don't even get in that day at all. And that's a whole other conversation. But when we get into the mountains, the goal is to then start trekking. And we like to get to a town called Monjo, which is about, I think it's about 8 miles. We have on the website, and I can share these links, but we have elevation gains on the trail every day and daily distances on the trail every day. And we like to get from there to Monjo. There's another town before that called Facting, which if anyone's read Into Thin Air or is going to read John Krakauer's book about Everest, that's the first town that they stayed in. So our goal is to get as far down that trail as possible so we can get up to Namche, which is the Sherpa capital, and where we spent 3 nights as quickly as we can the next day. Our aim is to get there by lunchtime, so we can start the acclimatization process even more, kick in those red blood cells and start working that system. So yes, on the first day, it's either a 3-hour hike or a 5.5-hour hike, just to get further into the trail. Because you usually arrive in, the flights usually only go in the morning between like 6 and like 11 o'clock in the morning. And then usually a normal Himalayan pattern is very clear, no wind in the morning. And then by like 11 o'clock, the wind starts to pick up. The temperatures, as the cold air meets the warm air, clouds start to form. Those are normal patterns. So the flights into the mountains are more challenging, and they require that the cloud level is at about 13,000 feet, because there's some high passes that you have to fly over. And if they're not clear, you definitely don't want to be on that flight into Lukla. So yes, when you arrive in, it's kind of a normal situation is arrive in, change your gear, get set up, everything for hiking, fill up water, and then get on the trail and get moving. So you're kind of closer to Namche for the next day.
Great. And we'll clarify that on our website as we get more information. We'll keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can send you the daily distances, the elevation gains, so you can kind of
I think we have that.
see all those things.
Yeah, I think we have that. So, excellent. Other questions?
Ian, what about food safety? I know you said that obviously washing your hands and treating your hands like tools is important to be safe. How is the food in general handled in the kitchens in terms of what you've seen and people getting sick on your trips?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw somebody getting sick from food related problems in the lodges that we use. So the reason we use the lodges that we do is because of that, purely because of accommodation on one side, but really about the food preparation and hygiene. And the lodge owners usually the lodge owners that we stay at are actually running the lodges. The challenge in the Everest region is a lot of these lodge owners that have had these lodges for years are now leasing them out to people. And the people that are leasing them out don't really care about, they're just thinking of the bottom line. The people that actually own the lodges, like I think in Namche, Ang Maya is the lady who runs Hotel Namche, and I've known her for a decade, but she is there all the time, and she's in the place, she's managing everything. Likewise, I think in Le Boucher, it's the same lady who owns a lodge in Dingboche, where we spent 2 nights in the Bright Star Lodge. The same cooks, the same people are there all the time. So the consistency in the lodges we use, I'm not concerned about. I've never seen an issue with food related problems. And when we have in years past, we've addressed those problems by just either telling the people to fix it or moving to the better lodges when they're available. So we kind of come up with a consistent system of lodges. We use the same ones every time. We've never had a problem.
Great question.
Wild animals or anything on the trails to get you?
Other questions? What?
Are there any wild animals on the trail?
Are there any, will we see any animals on the trail?
Yes, there was
Besides
wild
yak?
goat. Really, they'd never on the trail, like they're in like the distance or on the other side of the valley. But wild goats, like some animals that, you don't see spectacle. Like sometimes there's like these pandas that are like red pandas, and you don't get to see them that often. But there's no like snow leopards. There are snow leopards in the region, but no one's ever seen one. I've seen some paw prints at like 17,000 feet. We've no idea what they are. There's like Himalayan snowcock, these like peacocks. Nothing that's going to injure you or come anywhere near you. The biggest risk on the trail is porters and animals. So, and that's why we have like a lot of guides with the group at the front, in the middle, and the back, because the trails sometimes are very narrow, and the bridges on the trail are quite narrow. So managing people away from those hazards of just normal animals, forget about wild animals, just normal animals on the trail, because sometimes there's like a train of like 50 donkeys carrying rice, fuel, like it's a main trade route. Like you have to almost think about the trail as a road. This is the main road to Everest, and supplying Namche, which is like a vibrant, town at this stage. There's a lot of trade on that lower part of the trail. So there's animals going up, porters going up, guys that are carrying, 200 pounds of equipment up that trail. Those are the biggest risk. And animals and wild animals, yeah, you might get to see some interesting goats but they're not going to be anywhere near you. There's no snakes, there's no leeches at that elevation. There's no spiders, nothing that's going to injure you.
Good.
Sleep better, right?
Anything else, you guys?
No, covered a lot.
Pretty good for tonight.
Yeah, Ian, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had some good questions. I think there's tons of stuff to go over. I think when you read the dossier that we send out tomorrow, there's going to be a whole bunch of other questions, whether it's about training, whether it's about gear, whether it's about anything, hotels, or how do we book extra hotel nights, or whatever it may be. We can just, like I said, we're happy to do this. And if it's every 2 months or 3 months or whatever it may be, it's fun, happy to do it, and glad to see you're all that interested this far out and committing and excited and wanting to do it, because it is an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And like I said, we just want to be here to support the goals that you guys have, and thank you for doing all the hard work so far, getting everyone together.
Hey, what's your next trip?
I go to Ecuador in about 3 weeks to do Cotopaxi and Chimborazo, 20,000. Well, Cotopaxi is like 19 something, but Chimborazo is like 27 or 20,700. And then I'm home for a week at Christmas, and then a week later I go to Africa to do 2 Kilimanjaro trips back to back. And then I come back for 4 weeks and then I go to Nepal for a month again. So it's, I shouldn't argue because we haven't really worked for 18 months. So I'm actually quite happy to be able to go and do these things.
Yeah,
again.
absolutely, yeah.
We've
We've been in the same thing. Oh, yeah, question about vaccinations. What's Nepal like right now in terms of PCR tests before we fly out?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, we were up in the mountains for a good chunk of time, and on the way down, 90% of the Everest region is vaccinated for COVID. Nepal is requiring everybody, well, you don't have to be vaccinated, but you have to do a 10-day quarantine if you're not vaccinated on arrival. So that pretty much eliminates anyone from going there. So I think when it comes to COVID, I'm hoping by September next year, we're not dealing with, well, it's going to be around, but it's not going to be such a big deal. The exposure will be minimal, which is great. I think when you're getting a test in Kathmandu to get home is the biggest issue. Because if you tested positive in Kathmandu, even if you're vaccinated, you mightn't get that sick, but getting home is a problem. So you have to get a negative, right now you have to have a negative PCR test to get home. It's quite straightforward in terms of getting it. We will bring everybody to this hospital, which this system could change because I think they're going to try and do it more local to the tourist area. We had to drive about 30 minutes to a hospital to do this. It would cost 20,000 or 2,000 rupees, which is about $16 to get the PCR test. And we got the results back in 8 hours. So we were able to come out of the mountains in the morning, go straight to get tested. We got the test results that evening and were able to fly home the next day. So it was very straightforward. Did I enjoy them sticking, the thing in my brain? No, but and testing me, but it had to be done just to get home. I think we'll be dealing with a lot less of the protocols next year. We'll see how it all plays out. COVID in Nepal is very minimal that we know of. And there was no exposure. We haven't heard of any major issues in the region. I think other vaccinations that you have to consider are general ones, and we have a list of them in the dossier, and we have them on the website too if anyone wants to look at them. But anything from tetanus, Hep A, Hep B, things like rabies, getting rabies shots, not necessarily required because the chances, even if you got bitten by a wild dog on the back streets of Kathmandu, or bitten by a monkey or something like that in Kathmandu, which has never happened, but if it did happen, you still have to go to the hospital and get those 3 shots that you would have to get in the States, and they charge like $300 or something here, where you'd have to get them again anyway in the location where you're in. So something like rabies, you don't need to necessarily have, none of the shots you really need to have, but I think a lot of them are just recommendations to have, whether it's hepatitis A, Hep B, tetanus, etc. There's no malaria in Kathmandu, although there's definitely more mosquitoes as it gets warmer there. I'd never seen mosquitoes in Kathmandu until about 3 or 4 years ago, and this time I came back bitten quite badly. So there's definitely more of that, but no cases of malaria, which is a bigger concern because if you get malaria, it's with you forever. I think all of those are just recommendations, and we can give you a list, and then you can decide what you think you need.
That sounds good. We will talk about spraying your clothes with permethrin. If there's going to be mosquitoes there, that just keeps them off you. So, yeah.
But in the mountains, no mosquitoes.
Good.
I like that.
Too cold.
Yeah.
It's too cool.
Well, that sounds good. Thanks again. Thanks for your time, Ian. We look forward to meeting your wife at some point soon. And if you're ever out in California, stop by out here. And I'm going to try to make it to Vail. I just think
more than welcome. If anyone wants to come here and hike, especially during the summer, Oh, like there's great hikes here, like 2,000 feet of elevation with nice gondola ride down. For free. So if anyone is in the area and they want to go hiking with us, we're happy to, if we're around, we're happy to go out and hike. And if I love California, but I don't think we'll be getting there anytime soon, but I will be there. I will be there at some point. I can guarantee you that.
Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise. Take care, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next round.